What's up, everyone? My name is Alex, and I use he, him, his pronouns, or am/heirs pronouns, and I wanted to talk about using gendered terminology for myself, what kind of terms I use to refer to myself in a gendered way, and my struggle with finding language that fits my gender experience. So as a non-binary man, I feel like I have kind of a unique situation in finding terms that I'm okay with people referring to me as versus like terms that I'm not okay with, pronouns and other like gendered things. I talked about being a non-binary man versus like I'm not a binary man and I'm not just a non-binary person. So I've definitely covered that and talked about, struggles with that sort of identity that seems to contradict itself, but it's more like it's a very complex identity that I guess it kind of requires a lot of explaining in some spaces. Like, how are you non-binary and a man? I've never heard of that before. Because it's always like men, women, and non-binary people. Like, we're sort of categorized in this triad of identities, and people don't realize that there's so much overlap between the identities. There's like a lot of non-binary people have some kind of connection with binary terminology, gendered pronouns, stuff like that. So terms I'm okay with. I feel like I've talked about this before, but I cannot remember because there are so many episodes of identity talk. But I'm okay with man, dude, bro, guy, like any traditionally male gendered terms I'm okay with. Mr. or sir is a little weird, but I think that's just like an age thing. I don't feel like a sir. Mister's okay, but like I don't know, if it makes me feel like I'm older than I actually am. I mean, I feel older than I actually am, but it's weird to be called sir, I guess. Some people call me sir, but it's not a source of dysphoria or anything. It's just odd terminology to me. Obviously, he, him pronouns, those are my auxiliary pronouns. Like, no matter what, just assume like he, him is fine for me. I like feminine compliments, or at least traditionally feminine compliments. So beautiful or pretty, like I like terminology like that. But that's I think that's less gender specific. I think that's more of a gender non-conforming type thing, because I don't like to be referred to in a feminine way outside of that. But I figured I'd put it on the list for just language that I'm okay with. I know some people are not okay with like feminine leaning compliments and language to refer to them. So I figured it belonged on the list. Masculine compliments, handsome, dapper. I really don't know how many there are. There's not a lot that I know of. I can only think of handsome. Like, no one calls anyone dapper, really. Not common enough to like have it be like a talking point, I guess. And on top of he, him pronouns, am/heirs pronouns, I introduced just about every video with those pronouns, and I use those exclusively online in many online spaces. Like usually I'll put he/a pronouns. Like, my Instagram now has those pronouns, but I will also often just use am/heirs. It depends on like what kind of environment I'm in. And I do not like degendering terms. I brought this up as an issue in previous videos and talked about it at length. Degendering is when somebody very clearly wants to be referred to with gendered language, gendered pronouns, and you resort to using like non-gendered terminology for the person. Like, this person, they are my best friend. I don't know why your best friend would be degendered by you, but just like using neutral terminology when they clearly stated that they want very specific gender terminology referred to them. That's where I have the struggle of like being very open about my non-binary identity, because people might assume that means genderless or something outside of male and female, and they may resort to using they them pronouns and completely degendering me as opposed to misgendering. It's a form of misgendering. It's a very specific type of misgendering. So, struggles with male related terminology that is not just traditionally man or male or guy. A lot of terms use the word boy instead of man, and I find it difficult to adapt those to my everyday life. I have resorted to calling myself a demi guy as opposed to a demi boy because I don't while it is kind of like a soft malehood, it is a partial connection to malehood. I don't it feels, I don't always feel like calling myself a boy. It feels a little infantilizing myself, not like it has nothing to do with how other people refer to themselves. Like that's different. That has nothing to do with me, but my own personal experience. It feels weird, but I mean, there's like demi boy, there's boy flux, there's probably boy fluid, which sounds like a very odd term to me. But even weirder if you're replacing the word boy with the word man. Demi man sounds okay. If I put a hyphen in it, it looks okay, but it's really weird when it's one word without a hyphen. So if I say demi man or demi male, I will put like a hyphen to just kind of differentiate it, I guess. Yeah, like I'll use demi guy, but it's a little informal. So I mean, demi gender man is probably the most appropriate way to refer to myself without the diminutive terminology of boy, and it kind of gets across, like, it emphasizes being demi-gender, being partially a type of gender. So that's an option. It's longer. Demi-gender man. Like, I feel like if I introduce myself as a demi-gender man, there's going to be someone who's like, that's called a demi-boy. Why are you, like, expanding this word like this? But it's definitely a struggle to find terminology that doesn't just use boy instead of man. But I get it. Like, a lot of younger people are coming up with new terminology. I had talked about how for a lot of trans kids, they didn't grow up being allowed to call themselves a boy or a girl, like diminutive. Like, they didn't grow up as a child who was a girl or a child who was a boy, so they kind of take it on in adulthood and reclaim that, and they allow themselves to call themselves a boy. So I get that that's part of the reason why there's a lot of terminology that's diminutive. It's really just a reclamation of childhood. Also, as like an aside, I guess, this is the demi boy flag. I made a demi man flag. I mean, it's such a subtle difference, but I kind of like the differentiation. Like, demi boy uses traditional baby blue, demi girl uses baby pink, powder pink, pastel pink, but I made demi man and demi woman and used deeper shades of color to represent that identity. I kind of like that, to be totally honest. I also came up with the umbrella term gender veer, which is being used a lot now, which is really strange to me, but gender veer is all-encompassing any identity that is related to malehood in some way. So demi men are under that, boy flux people, maybe gender fawn people, which are gender fluid people who never encompass female related genders. It is completely male or neutral leaning, or non female leaning identities. But there's that, and I mean, everything would be considered gender veer if it's at all related to being male, partially or wholly, anything in between, fluid identities, fluctuating identities, multigender men as well. That's all under that same umbrella. It's a very general term, and I mean, I kind of click with a lot of male related terminology. I talked about like labels that resonate with me. I talked about that in a video and talked about, I mean, a lot of identities that I relate to are either like connected in some way to masculinity or malehood, and I could use gender veer to refer to myself to say like, yeah, my identity just encompasses malehood in the broadest spectrum, in the broadest way, and that like a lot of them fit me, which is the reason for using gender veer. But not a lot of people know that term. It's picking up in popularity. Its usage, I'm seeing it everywhere, but I think it's very specific spaces anyway. So I'm not sure the practicality of using a niche label. Proxveer was another term where it's an identity related to male or similar to male, but on its own plane. It's almost like a neo-binary label. The Proxveer and Juxera is the other one. It's like proximally female, proximally male. The person who made the term said that Proxera was a medication, so they could not use prox again as a Latin base. So they went with Juxera, which is the same thing, like a proximal identity. It's part of the circa binary, which is almost it's almost the binary. It's kind of if the binary was like a center, the circa binary, circa meaning around or encompassing, circling. That's the circa binary with Proxveer being on it, and that's related, similar to binary male, but its own thing entirely. I like that set of identities. I would love to adopt Proxveer as a term. I think that like it's a really cool word, and I like what it encompasses. I like that it's so unique in that like it's binary related, but it's also very other. But I mean, those are my options for terminology, and that's not even like calling someone a man, a dude, a guy. Like, I don't think you call someone a Proxveer. I don't think you call someone a gender veer. At least when I made gender veer, it's an adjective only. There's got to be like more terminology that kind of like just a noun that you call someone, like that person is sitting over there, finding something that is related to male or is neutral or like, I guess, infers like an identity outside of the binary somewhere. Like, I wish there were more terms like that you could call someone. That is a discussion that was going on in my Discord server recently, was coming up with terminology to call just queer people, gender queer people. And we talked about how, like, we don't want to refer to all non-binary people with the same noun because it makes it sound like non-binary is just one distinct identity, like on its own, whereas like non-binary encompasses so many different identities because there's gendered individuals and there's completely genderless individuals and everything in between. And so coming up with terminology like that's kind of tough. It's like trying to come up with pronouns. I mean, basically, I don't know what kind of noun that's called. Maybe it's a proper noun. I thought proper nouns were capitalized, like proper titles, but maybe I'm wrong. Like the word man, like referring to someone who is of the male gender, man is the noun to refer to that person. So I don't know if there's terms, names for a term like that. Why not just call myself a man? Why look for something to refer to myself outside of just calling myself a man? In general, in the general public, just my day-to-day life, going to work and going like out, just going about my day, man fits just fine for me. Like calling me a man or guy, like all the terminology I covered in the beginning of the video, that is fine for me. Like, by default, that's totally fine. And it sparks just as much gender euphoria in me, to be totally honest. Like, I'm not I'm not really looking to adapt to like terminology outside of like male related terms for myself. Just in specific queer spaces, I would like to find terminology that fits and makes me feel like my identity is being recognized. Not a lot of people realize that when you're being called sir or ma'am, your gender is being recognized. I know some people are misgendered. I mean, in the scope of like they get it right. Like they call you like he or she just automatically, and like even for cis people, like your gender is being accommodated. Your gender is being acknowledged by a stranger, and like a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of cis people don't think about that. Like just automatically you're being seen as who you are. And in specific online spaces, which is like really the only place I have access to any kind of queer community, like having that in those spaces and being able to be referred to and acknowledged as a non-binary identity, I think it's nice. It feels really nice. So just struggling with finding that kind of terminology. Pronouns, I love I love hearing when people are using both sets of my pronouns. The issue being that nobody refers to you in the third person. Like if you're in like a social space, like on Discord and you're chatting, no one's going to use your pronouns unless you ask them to try out a little like pronoun practice with you. But yeah, like that's that's the struggle. Like at least like in those spaces, people will be like, oh, like you're a guy who likes video games, right? Like you're a like video game guy. You're kind of a like nerdy man, like that kind of stuff. Like I would love something to replace man and to see like how it feels, how it fits, because I think like it could be incorporated so easily into everyday conversation. Yeah, I guess that's all I got. A couple of these videos are going to be a bit shorter, some of them longer, like the identity talk videos. Mostly I'm just covering all of the topics I have left to talk about before like identity talk is over, and I'm replacing this series with something else. I want to do a gender specific, I want to do a multi-gender specific video series talking very in depth about my gender experience, having two genders, what that's like, how those two genders interact or play a part in my life, and talking about terminology, very specific terminology, like related to my experience rather than, I don't want to do like any more series on or any more videos on questioning. I did a lot of those, like what if I have a gender alignment? What if I'm xenogender? The questioning stuff, like unless I do really question taking on a specific label, I won't be doing any more of that kind of content. But I thought it'd be nice to talk about being multigender. I don't see it a lot. I feel like I don't see it a lot. Like just having more than one gender and what that's like. Like I'd like to cover more specific topics on this channel and somehow come up with something more than just the discussion type stuff. So that's about it. That's all I got for you. Question of the week: what terminology are you comfortable with when people refer to you? It's pretty simple, like gendered terminology, gendered nouns, pronouns, anything really. Compliments too. Compliments can be very gendered. So just let me know, answer in the comments or in the Discord server. We're always over there talking about all kinds of stuff, all kinds of identity related stuff. Also, since this is a gender video, I made a Discord server for multigender adults. I ended up calling it the Polygender Palace. But yeah, it's 18 plus. So like, if you're interested, if I can remember, I'll put it in the description below. I'll put the link there for you, and I'll try to start linking it to all my other social media. But yeah, I got a place where multigender people can come and talk about their experiences, because I can share my own experiences as a polygender adult, and other people can share their experiences, and I can learn from that. I think that would be really cool, and it would also be really good inspiration for some of the other projects that I'm working on that are related to, being multigendered in some way. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I hope everyone is doing all right. I've got an entire kitten to raise, so that's taking up a lot of my time lately. But yeah, anyway, I'm signing off for now. See you later.